you said, so we'll create the zone of silence, and then we lock them down, and it's a zone of, hey, they'll be fine.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, that's like a new spell name. The zone of, hey, they'll be fine. You're just immune to everything in there. Everything's fine.
That seems like a new cleric spell. I could see it being put on there.
Yeah.
Or a 5th level paladin spell that bards get with magical secrets and ruin the game.
Right. In like Jebediah's wood shack of wonders. the next book.
You can't let them know that we're onto these secrets. It's privileged information.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Pornigal.
And I'm Will Melden.
And we'll be hanging out with you for a while to talk about anything and everything D&D related. On this episode, we are taking a look at the Jabberwock added in the new book, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. So, let's dive into it. So the Jabberwock is actually, it's a public domain creature from the mind of Lewis Carroll from the 1800s. First brought about in a poem, which I think is just going to encapsulate all of the deep lore and history here. So I'll just read this poem aloud for you guys. First time here. Reading a poem in the podcast. I don't know why that's a big deal.
You can make it a milestone if you'd like.
Yeah, no, it's not. I was just being weird. That's making it, trying to build the hype for something that doesn't require hype. Isn't that how this stuff works to like get attention?
Welcome to the first ever Monsters and Multiclass Poetry Slam.
Anyway, so this is titled The Jabberwocky. 'Twas brillig and the slilthy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rats outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub-burb, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought, so rested by the tumtum tree and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tuggly wood and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, calloo, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and mome rats outgrabe. Makes perfect sense. So you guys understand the concept of the Jabberwock?
I heard fiery eyes, so let's throw that in the stat block.
O frabjous day.
Yeah, it's a nonsense poem. It was in Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, and she found it, and the whole point is basically she looked at it, and I didn't read the book, but I'm understanding. She goes, "What the fuck is this?" and puts it down just to like show how crazy this world is.
Oh,
yeah. So the Jabberwock, for some reason, like caught people's interest and attention, and has been like this common monster through various media through the ages, especially since it hit public domain quite a while back at this point. And that's it though. Jabberwock is not in that book. It's just a poem mentioning it, and that's the entirety of it. But then there was like a movie in the 1970s about slaying the Jabberwock, and the recent like Tim Burton versions of Alice in Wonderland have the Jabberwock as like a voiced actual character, and there's various other things. So I don't know why people got so attached to the Jabberwock from that poem, but here it is in D&D.
Yeah, and the D&D
well.
lore that is established very much keeps it in line with this. Just, it's kind of a monster. It is a beast. It's not this conniving creature. It has a lot of similarities to a dragon, but by no means does it have the deep, almost culture to it that a dragon does. There's no hoarding. There's no anything. It shows up. It hunts. It's mean and aggressive, but it's chaotic evil just because. It's also got 4 intelligence, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the stat block.
Yeah.
But nothing that I see from this background lore or the poem would advise me as a dungeon master of a way to create some intricate plot lines around a Jabberwocky.
Nah, it's just a tough thing to kill. Menaces the land. I know within the Wild Beyond the Witchlight, it's like somebody's like palace grounds the Jabberwock is in, and there's always fear of it getting bored of that and leaving and terrorizing the area. And it's just kind of like a more whimsical version of the medieval version of dragons, not like
Sure.
the D&D ultra intelligent, just kind of like a local menace that the brave knight goes and slays. I think it's just a more whimsical version of that.
Right, which I think is good. I mean, the way that it can be used is as that kind of obvious force of bad, of this thing is evil, and we don't have to question it. We don't have to think about the moral implications, which to some extent sometimes you do with a dragon, because it is very much a sentient creature and, I don't know, can be reasoned with. That really depends on dragons in your setting, but the Jabberwock isn't trying to be that. It's not trying to be anything. It just shows up as it specifies in the lore here. It's a solitary, temperamental predator that haunts pristine forests and ancient ruins. So, yeah, your party needs to go seek out some ancient ruins. Maybe they have to kill one of these first, because that'd be cool, and everyone gets excited because they're like, it's a Jabberwock. You know, we all know that the Jabberwock, it's a Jabberwock, and that's it. Right. It's a cool fight.
Yeah, and yeah, there's within the D&D lore at least, confusion about specifically what it is, and I wonder if that's just kind of in reference to its nonsense poem where it's come from, saying accurate descriptions were difficult to come by because rare survivors of an encounter with one retain only a confused impression of its parts and not a sense of its whole, and things are just kind of howled together over the ages of broken descriptions.
Yeah.
Just kind of a neat thing, and I think that's just a kind of a nod to its nonsense poem, and then it's like different iterations through the ages.
Definitely. So
yeah,
for DMs looking to use it, I would definitely suggest just maybe one-shots where you want a very clear end boss without any question around it, or small arcs in your game where they need to figure out how to kill this thing, because there's at least a couple of ways of making that easier. So maybe it's searching for lore and finding out things there. As again, we'll talk about with the Vorpal sword that you should not give your party for long terms at all. But there's options. It's just, you know, it's simple. And I feel like a lot of times we avoid talking about the simple monsters, but this one I'm all right with because the fight sounds fun.
Right. It does give you a one sentence on how to kind of play it. And once the Jabberwock has chosen its target, it concentrates its attack on the target until the victim is killed and devoured. Until the Jabberwock is killed, or until the target escapes using teleportation or some other similar means. So very much, this is going to be kind of a PC killer. You know, a lot of times with the big monsters that hit hard, which this one does, where it's challenge rating, yeah, you kind of like, oh, let's divide it up amongst the party and whittle everyone down. This one is directly telling you, no, it's going to target somebody and it is going to go after them until dead.
Yeah, and I think choosing that will be kind of interesting as the DM, because it's up to you what it determines its prey is and which PC it focuses on first. Maybe it's the tankiest one because you want to make the fight last a little bit longer. Maybe it's the wizard because you want to absolutely decimate your party and terrify them. It's up to you, but what I would definitely recommend is that when the creature gets knocked down to 0 HP, this thing's going to keep attacking. It's not done. Until the person is actually dead, they're the focus, no matter what.
Right.
Which, as you said, it makes it a PC killer, because usually, you know, sentient creatures, they drop somebody to unconscious and they go, well, you're not a threat anymore, until they see the cleric come in with a revivify, and maybe then they catch on. But this thing, it's going for the kill.
Mm-hmm. So, the stat block. It's a challenge rating 13, huge dragon, typically chaotic evil. Interesting, the typically, but...
They've been putting that on everything.
Have they?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
It's the new thing, just that they're not grouping things up as like, you know, orcs are always evil. It's like, well, they're typically evil, but, you know, they can fall outside of that.
Right. All right, so armor class of 18, 115 hit points, and then it has every type of movement speed of walking, climbing, flying, and swimming of all 30 feet. So very versatile there. 20 strength, 12 dex, 20 con, 4 intelligence, 7 wisdom, and 11 charisma. So very much a physical powerhouse, not so much mental. Saving throws of plus 10 to strength, plus 6 to dex, plus 10 to con, plus 2 in intelligence, plus 3 to wisdom, and plus 5 to charisma. So a proficiency in every single one of them.
It's really interesting. You don't normally see that.
No.
I think that's the impression that you're supposed to get, that not much is normal about this creature.
Sure,
Right.
which I like that. It's interesting, and also having just a -2 to wisdom is dangerous. There are some really, really good wisdom spells that you don't want this thing just auto-failing everything on.
Mm-hmm. It has +8 to perception for a skill, so somewhat hard to sneak up on, but kind of not. Damage vulnerabilities, which is also rare. Slashing from a Vorpal sword. So I like that they added it, because Vorpal swords are pretty rare. Not like something every party is going to have. But if you're like, so this is challenge rating 13, if you're like a level 8 party tasked with taking this thing down, you need to find something to put in your favor. And that's what I think you were talking about. Looking up lore, finding a Vorpal sword is super effective. And so before you go and confront the Jabberwock, you have to obtain a Vorpal sword through some means.
Right. Which is where I would really add on as a DM. Please do not give your party members a Vorpal sword at level 8 for an extended period. Allow them to
give your party the Vorpal sword.
Allow them
It
to
will be funny.
Will, don't do that. Don't do that. It's something that maybe you want to loan them. You know, it's somebody has a Vorpal sword and they will let the party borrow it because they do them a favor. I mean, whatever it is, whatever scenarios you want to put in front of them beforehand to obtain that are fine. But a Vorpal sword is a +3 weapon that automatically decapitates somebody on a natural 20. If you give that to a level 11 fighter, they're going to just lop off heads left and right, and challenge will be
Right.
thrown to the wind.
Yeah, and also ignores resistance to slashing damage. There are some things that are immune to it. If they have more than one head, if they don't need their head, they're fine.
If they have
It
more than one
specifically calls
head,
that out.
you just cut off one of the heads.
I know, yeah. Oh yeah, if immune to slashing damage, doesn't have or need a head, has legendary actions, or the GM decides the creature is too big for its head to be cut off with a sword.
Did you say if it has legendary actions?
Yes.
Oh,
that
that's
makes it
interesting.
immune. That makes it immune to the decapitation.
Okay, but it does.
Which makes a lot of sense.
But it's
Like, if it didn't call that out, like rules is written, you could like one-shot a ancient red dragon.
But it still does an extra like 68 damage or something like that when it gets a crit.
No.
It says it's
Just
Yeah,
Slops it
no,
off.
if
It's-
it's immune to that, it gets 68.
yeah, if it's immune to the effect.
Oh, I missed that last sentence. Okay. Yep.
So it's still very, very powerful, even against things that are. I mean, that's just a very strong crit.
Right. So instead of trying to come up with some way where they could have it and then you have to give it back, like if you borrow it, there's always questions like, why isn't the person you're borrowing it from going to take care of this?
Because
And-
they're a scholar and a coward, but they
Then
recognize.
why are you going to give it back? Yeah, then
Because
you're
it's
stuck
theirs.
with
What
your
the
party.
fuck are you
gonna
going to
be,
do?
Yeah, then you're stuck with the party just going to be jerks like, nah, I think we'll just keep this.
That's great, and there's no way that a DM could deal with that, right?
I'm just saying, I would switch it out from being a Vorpal sword and just like, there's this particular magic sword that's paired with the Jabberwock that is better at slaying, and you have to go seek that out, and otherwise it's just a regular sword. Or it gets
Vorpal sword.
destroyed. Sure, or it gets destroyed in the process.
That's a
That
good
sort of
one.
thing.
Is
Like, yeah, it's a sentient, and as it like slays the soul of the Jabberwock, its soul gets slayed as well.
And then the party's like, what if we just held onto this Vorpal sword and never bothered to kill the Jabberwock and just moved on with our lives with a Vorpal sword?
Yeah, well, then the party's jerks.
Well, the magic only works within a mile of the Jabberwock. Well, that's crazy. I can't believe I didn't read that out before.
Yeah, there's ways around it, definitely. And I think if your party is going to try and be a jerk about it, again, as a DM, there's always things that you can do to stop them. I mean, you send people
Right.
to kill them and to take the sword away in the middle of the night. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be worked out.
Or you just let them have it, and you just say, this is the game now. This is the balance I have to work around. That's cool, too. Some people enjoy that. I personally hate when the party gets way too many magic items, everything gets thrown out of balance, and it's very difficult to make challenges for them.
I dislike when it's disproportionate. In that case, like the fighter with the Vorpal Sword is going to be miles ahead of the rest of the party.
Yeah.
That's where I think it becomes a problem.
That's
the
very
entire
fair.
party is equally lifted. It's like, all right, that's just kind of more of a design game choice about if you want to balance for that. But when it's us so uneven, that's rough.
We say fighter. Fighter, I'll give you, does have some advantages. But imagine the smug look on your paladin's face when they roll a 20. It's bad now. Give them a Vorpal Sword.
I mean, I guess a Vorpal Sword, if it wasn't a creature with legendary actions, then, or any of these immunities, whatever, they'd basically be, okay, I guess I don't need to dump my smite into this. I get to save my smite because I just killed him.
Right. Or if it is the legendary action big boss of the campaign and you get a 20 and you dump like a 5th level smite in there.
4th is the max.
4th, okay, which does 5d8, I think. So, and then the Vorpal Sword would do an additional 68, so it's 11d8, crits to 22d8.
I think that damage doesn't crit.
No, never mind.
that
That
damage
68's not going to double. You're right.
Right.
Never mind. That would be...
So it would be 68 plus 8d... No, plus 10d8.
So 16d8.
Yeah. Plus your weapon damage.
Yeah.
But that's fun, like level 20 stuff that I don't even care at that point. But at level 10, no, not okay.
Yeah. All right, moving on to stat block. Immune to poison damage, and then conditioned immunities of charm, frightened, and poisoned. Senses of true sight out to 120 feet. Passive perception of 18. So again, kind of hard to sneak up on. Some sort of standard conditioned immunities, just so you can't so much shut it down. It has a confusing burble as just kind of this active passive trait. Active passive, that doesn't make sense. As a passive always on trait. The Jabberwock burbles to itself, and hey, that was a word of the poem.
Hey.
Unless it is incapacitated. Any creature that starts its turn within 30 feet of the Jabberwock and is able to hear its burbling makes a DC 18 charisma save. On a failed save, the creature can't take reactions until the start of its next turn, and rolls a d4 to determine if it does what it does during its current turn. On a 1 to 2, it does nothing. On a 3, the creature does nothing except use all its movement to move in a random direction. Or on a 4, the creature either makes one melee attack against a random creature it could see, or does nothing if no visible creature is within its reach. So it's like a souped up confusion spell.
Yeah, because usually confusion has a couple of outs, where it's like, oh, you get to do whatever you want. Don't worry about it. But DC 18 charisma saving throw is punishing.
And there's no immunity. A lot of times these type of things where it's like, if you pass it, you're immune for 24 hours. This happens every turn. And that's rough. That's really rough.
Extremely. The only thing that I find odd is that when it comes up, it's always weird. The 4th one, or number 4, the creature either makes one melee attack against a random creature it can see, or does nothing. A lot of times, if you're if you're a melee combatant and you're the only one that's up against the Jabberwock, you roll that and you're like, oh, cool, I get to make my attack against it. And then the only downside is that you're only making a single attack instead of taking the attack action and getting 2, 3, 4, whatever, how many you should get.
Sure.
But yeah, very, very damaging. And if it wasn't so easy to be far away from this thing, it would be very, very detrimental. But overall, it's with only 30 speed, that's all it's got, and no legendary action ways to increase its movement. This thing's actually really easy to kite.
Kinda.
Okay.
So, and I will skip here a little bit. It has its regeneration. The Jabberwock regains 10 hit points at the start of its turn. If the Jabberwock takes slashing damage, the trait doesn't function at the start of its next turn. And then it only dies if it starts its turn with 0 hit points and doesn't regenerate. No ranged attacks do slashing damage.
That is correct. So it's easy to whittle down from range, but at some point you will need to get up close to it and fight through the confusing burbling in order to get an attack off and succeed. I also think that it might... I guess players might not know about the regeneration when they get into the fight, depending on how you set things up. If they are able to research and they do a bunch of research beforehand, they learn about the Vorpal Sword, they learn about the regeneration and how it works. These are things that can make this fight either much, much easier or much harder if they don't know. So actually, I like that about the design of this monster. Depending on how much knowledge you have beforehand, I don't think people would know everything that this is going to bring to the table. It's not like fighting a gelatinous cube where everyone's like, yeah, I know how you fight a gelatinous cube. It's pretty straightforward. We are all familiar with it. The Jabberwock stat block has things that I just don't think you see very often. Regeneration that stops from slashing damage. I can't name another creature with that.
Right. And I'm going to disagree about it's easy to stay away from. You might be able to start your turn there, like you're 60 feet back, and then you attack it, and then you run back 30 feet, because most PCs have a speed of 30 feet. This thing will then just dash 60 feet up, and then you're within 30 feet of it, and you start your turn there, next turn, and then you're under effect of the confusing burble.
Sure.
But I mean, it's not that hard for this thing to get within 30 feet of you.
Yeah.
Also, then you're completely shutting down like paladins and barbarians, types, various varieties of fighters and rogues. Rogues will probably never get sneak attack. I mean, that's a huge damage reduction.
I mean, rogues can get sneak attack if they either do their bonus action to hide, or if they do their bonus action to steady aim, that one, which would mean they're not moving, so that goes away.
Right. Yeah, there's always the bonus action hide, but there's also ways around that.
Sure.
So it's tricky. Like, I think, yeah, I was just double checking confusing burble. It doesn't say like the creature becomes charmed and well charmed in this way, so you can't like, put like a charm immunity. You know, that would be one where again, as like the lore search leading up to it, just to add in a way to make people immune.
Yeah.
So this, and I guess it does if they could hear the burble.
Silence is a thing that exists.
Is able to hear its burbling. Yeah.
Oh.
So I guess that's enough to work with the silence spell, or I don't know if just earplugs would do it, but
that'd be good. And say another thing that if the party is tipped off to this beforehand, can completely shut that down. And the silence spell can that be cast on a moving object? Like, is it cast on a creature or on yourself, or does that have to be on a point? Because I know like the light spell can follow you around.
So it's 120-foot range, 20-foot radius sphere. For the duration, no sound can be created within or past a 20-foot radius sphere centered on a point you choose. Any creature objects is immune to thunder damage, and the creatures are deafened. No. It doesn't. It does not sound like you can cast it on something that moves.
Okay. So in that case, you'd need to cast it somewhere and then also kind of lock it down in that spot. Which,
yeah, a little tricky.
Which there's ways to do, or even you just you make a little zone of, hey, they'll be fine. Or if you do it on the person that the Jabberwock has said is their target, and then you just have the target stand still in the silence, and they just have to deal with it.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's kind of it's deadliness against it.
It's focus, yeah.
Yeah.
Say, oh,
yeah.
Too bad you're focused on them, because we're just going to keep you from burbling.
You could also deafen your party members if you were feeling particularly spicy.
Oh, blindness / deafness, yeah. Deafen them, and it's not a concentration spell, and just everyone could choose to fail the save.
That'd be really spicy. That's
I like that. Yeah.
You get awarded inspiration for that.
Yeah.
Like right now, Will. You get inspiration. Use it on your next roll.
I like the zone of hay that we find.
The what?
That's what you said. You said we locked them down, and it's like a zone of hay, they'll be fine, as if like that's a spell.
Zone of
zone
hay?
of truth, zone of silence, and then like the new. What?
I'm not hearing what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm ruining your flow.
You said, so we'll create the zone of silence, and then we lock them down, and it's a zone of, hey, they'll be fine.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, that's like a new spell name. The zone of, hey, they'll be fine. You're just immune to everything in there. Everything's fine.
That seems like a new cleric spell. I could see it being put on there.
Yeah.
Or a 5th level paladin spell that bards get with magical secrets and ruin the game.
Right. And like Jebediah's wood shack of wonders. the next book.
You can't let them know that we're onto these secrets. It's privileged information.
It was not mentioned, but just to throw it out there so we can move on because it's not that interesting. It does get 3 legendary resistances per day. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty common thing for difficult monsters. So also great and good to use for those save or suck spells because it doesn't have the best saves against those. Again, low charisma, intelligence, and wisdom. If the party knows this and targets the appropriate thing, probably going to burn through those legendary resistances pretty quickly. It's not like a dragon where it's got plus 15 to everything, and it's like, if it fails, it has another legendary resistance. So stop trying to banish it. This is like, no, keep trying to banish it. That might work, actually.
Right. It would come back, though, after a minute.
Yeah, I guess Hold Beast is probably better. Or Hold Monster. But that's a 5th level spell, so you might have that, you might not.
Right. And then it also has Uncanny Tracker. The Jabberwock can unerringly track any creature it has wounded in the last 24 hours, and it knows the distance and direction to its quarry as long as the two of them are on the same plane of existence. So if you start the fight, you better finish it. Is what that says. Also, that could be used as against the rogues trying to do the I hide every single turn.
Oh.
Thing. Like, I mean, it doesn't explicitly say that like they're immune to being hidden from them, but I would kind of interpret that as like, no, the rogue can't really hide from this thing.
That's interesting. I wonder how you would feel if that exact scenario came up at the table while you were hiding. Because
it would be fine. I mean, there's plenty of times where, you know, me or our other rogue at the table try and hide, and it doesn't work out because of something. It's like, okay, that's fine. It happens. Like, it does feel kind of cheesy to be able to bonus action hide, get advantage every single turn.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm fine when stuff pops up that
shuts it down.
Gets rid of it. Yes. All right, actions. So the Jabberwock makes 2 rend attacks as a multi-attack. The rend is a plus 10 to hit, reach at 10 feet, and it does 3d10 plus 5 slashing damage. Average of 21, so 42 in a turn with its multi-attack. It also does have a tail attack, plus 10 to hit, reach of 15 feet. This one only does 1d10 plus 5 bludgeoning.
Yeah, this is just there to add on for the legendary actions. I don't think you'd ever be expected to use this for its turn.
Right. And then the really cool Fiery Gaze, which recharges on a 5 or 6. And like, hey, the poem said it has fiery eyes. So unless it's blinded, the Jabberwock emits a 120-foot long, 5-foot wide line of fire from its eyes. Each creature in the line must make a DC 18 dex save, taking 78 fire damage on a fail or half as much on a success.
Yep.
Cool ability. Probably use it every time it comes up.
Yeah, probably. Every time I see that it's a saving throw of 18, it feels really high for a challenge rating 13, but I actually looked at like building CR, the little table that everybody ignores, and so they say CR makes no sense and that there's no possible way any human being could crack the code of CR. The one in the DMG that lists out how to crack the code of CR specifically states that a challenge 13 creature would normally have a DC 18 saving throw. But for some reason, that sounded really high to me.
Yeah, well, doesn't it? If like damage goes up, then to keep a challenge rating 13, that needs to go down. I think that's usually what.
Right, and so I think the fact that
same with defenses and
since this doesn't do that much damage, I mean, I guess I haven't added up what its total amount is. It's probably going to outpace Baphomet, though.
I don't know about that, but it does lie. I mean, so it's just basic multi-attack, average 42 damage a round.
Right, and then legendary
it gets 3
actions.
Legendary, where I could do 3 tail attacks, which would average an additional 30.
So 72.
Or a rend and a tail, which would be 31. Like, how it kind of works out. But
it's all around 70s, which actually was around where Baphomet was, if I remember correctly. I don't know if we added legendary actions on that.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
doesn't matter. Either way,
right.
70 damage is pretty high. I don't have the CR calculation up in front of me, but now I'm curious. I got to look it up. What's average? Right. This is just going to be an average monster all around. So 13 average damage is 81 to 86 per round. So it's a little on the low
There you
side
go.
for damage.
Okay. Damn, so those
It
demon
compares
lords are really falling
interestingly
behind.
with adult dragons, because this I mean, it's a dragon.
Yeah.
But
Right.
adult dragons are often in the 13 range. Whites specifically, which is basically the easiest dragon. It's night and day because of the burble. The burble is massive
Yeah.
when calculating this. And the regen combining kind of with the burble. Like the cold breath on a exact same challenge rating 13 ice dragon is 54 damage.
Yeah, that's a lot more. And it's a cone
And it's a
instead of
cone.
a line, which honestly is and the easiest save as well, because dexterity is the most common one to be able to succeed in. And you've got the rogue and monk's abilities with evasion.
Yeah, now that burble's a killer. All right, and to wrap it up, legendary actions takes 3. These are same as any other creature of legendary actions. They could take them between other creatures' turns, like at the end of another creature's turns. So 1, it could be a tail attack, that's the 15-foot reach plus 10 to hit, 1d10 plus 5 bludgeoning damage. For 2 action points, it could do a rend attack. Or then for 3, it could do a wing attack, which is a new thing here. The Jabberwock beats its wings. Each creature within 10 feet of the Jabberwock must succeed on DC 18 dex save or take 1d6 plus 5 bludgeoning damage and be knocked prone.
So, Will, do you still have the adult white dragon stat block up there? Because what's that thing's wing attack? If I remember correctly, it's 2 for its action, and it does a good amount more damage, and
It's
it gets to
2d6
move.
plus 6 and fly half speed.
2d6 plus 6.
Yeah.
So I guess
So,
that's what
not
average
much
of
more.
13.
Yeah, 13 versus 8.
And it can move up to half its fly speed afterwards. And it only takes 2 of its actions instead of 3.
Yeah.
Little surprised that the wing attack costs so much here.
Yeah, I don't know how often it would be worth it. Unless you're it's about to go next turn and it hasn't used any legendary actions up to this point. Then you wing attack and knock somebody prone, and then you get advantage attacks.
Which then would be very, very deadly. I'll give it that. But you can also do that with a dragon and do way more damage from it. So
Right. But this is not a dragon.
I know.
Well, it is a
It is
dragon.
actually
Okay,
a dragon.
that's fair.
But I'm just surprised that it takes 3 actions in order to do the wing attack. I would expect at the very least, if it's going to do 3 actions for this, that it should be able to move half of its movement speed afterwards as well. And I would probably throw that in there just in case the movement speed was helpful. Its movement speed isn't crazy high either. It would get like 15 feet.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the other part of the stat block. It just gets kind of ridiculous. Like Dragonfly speed's 80 feet.
Yeah.
This is 30. This thing has 115 hit points. That dragon has 200.
Yeah.
It's a weird one, and I think that's actually pretty fitting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the burble in the regen makes up for that.
Yeah, I think it makes it a fun fight. And I think that in comparison of just a challenge rating 13 white dragon, adult white dragon, or a Jabberwock, I think there is much more in terms of preparation that's exciting. And also you could, if you take out some of these things, if your party knows beforehand what they're getting into, then you really can throw this against a level 8 party, and they'd probably be fine. I mean, 115 HP is 3 rounds, maybe? It's not that much if you keep that HP where it's at. So it'll be a quick fight if, again, they know about using silence. They know about using slashing damage. They know about, they have a Vorpal sword or whatever variation on the Vorpal sword you want to make. Then it's going to be a quick but exciting fight. And I don't think that's what you expect from a dragon fight. A dragon fight, I expect it to be a long, difficult slog. And because of that, I get nervous about throwing it at groups that are under 2 digits.
So that's the Jabberwock. Definitely a unique fight. I think, yeah, that kind of as we went through, we talked about all the different ways to use it. So I don't think we have much more to say here, but I think it's a happy addition.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. It's also the only monster that I saw in Wild Beyond the Witchlight that gave me any interest at all. Everything else was not that exciting. So this is the end of our Wild Beyond the Witchlight coverage. Hooray!
Same one. There's no new subclasses or anything. Yeah, it doesn't get much from us.
No,
Not much love.
But we do have the dragon book coming out soon. Fizz Bang Wang's Dragon Horde. I don't know what the name is.
It. It's Fizbane's Treasury of Dragons.
Honestly, pretty close. Where we'll be covering the subclasses that come out of that, and maybe monsters. I don't know what else is going to be in there. Might be a good time to do our dragon special. We still never have gotten around to that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we'll probably not do that. We're going to keep putting that one off. And segue, Describe. So, if you are not familiar, we are affiliated with a group called Describe. It is a website that you can go to and get beautiful descriptions as a dungeon master for just about any scene that you could possibly come up with. So, whereas the Jabberwocky is entirely nonsensical, Describe is actually very sensical and very good. Is sensical a word? And you can go, you lovely listener, can go to Describe and get 10% off your subscription using the code MM10. So if you want to do that, go for it. Again, wonderful descriptions. They've got a whole bunch of free ones on there that you can just use. But if you want the deeper stuff, it'll cost you. But it'll cost you less with the code MM10. And as usual, if you want other ways to support the show, you can go to monstersandmulticlass.com/support. One of those ways would be our Patreon, where you can get early access to videos as long as they're finished in time. Usually they are, so that it's at least a day early, so that's pretty cool. And thank you, as usual, to our current patrons. I'm going to read them backwards. Craig A., Bob F., Ed G., Home Bakery, Adam A., Star Shinobi, Sentinel D20, Isaac M., Vincent M., Joe P., Jeff W., and William Meldon. Wait a second. Thank you all for your continued patronage. You're all awesome, and we love you. And take it away.
As always, thanks for watching.